Look, pull up a chair, grab a drink, and let's be entirely real with each other for the next 20 minutes. The summer transfer window has officially devolved into absolute unadulterated madness. My timeline is completely broken, your timeline is broken. And if I see one more corporate media account copy-pasting hollow transfer rumors just to chase clicks, I am gonna lose my mind. Everyone is talking about massive numbers, bid standoffs, and done deals that aren't actually done. But today on Mashup Network, we are stripping away the dry spreadsheets and the clinical data jargon. I want to talk to you human to human about the actual reality of these players. Is Guimaraes actually coming to London?
Yeah.
Are clubs completely losing their minds with these astronomical price tags for unproven teenagers? We are going to go through every single player dominating the news cycle right now, and I'm giving you my completely raw, unfiltered opinion on who is a certified superstar and who is an absolute trap. Let's get into it. Let's start with the absolute heavyweight saga of the summer, Guimaraes. Look at the reality on the table right now. Fabrizio is reporting that Arsenal's opening salvo of £55 million was laughed out of the room by Newcastle. Then they go back with an informal £65 million, and Newcastle turns it down again. Newcastle is sitting comfortably, holding out for a staggering £90 million to even open up the formal negotiations. Now let's look at the players' side of this, because this is where it gets incredibly human. The reports say Bruno has expressed a clear desire to join Arsenal, and personal terms wouldn't even be an issue. But he's maintaining an intense disrespectful attitude toward Newcastle. He isn't throwing a tantrum, he's not skipping training, and he's not forcing a toxic exit. And honestly, part of me respects that immensely. In a modern football world where players routinely fake injuries or post cryptic emoji nonsense on Instagram to force a move, Bruno is acting like a professional. But here is my worry for Gunners fans. Is this respect actually killing the deal? If you are Arteta, you know Guimaraes is the absolute piece of your jigsaw final puzzle. He has that raw South American fire, that elite grit. He is one of the midfielders in the Premier League, and the technical ability to lock down that midfield spine next to Rice. He is the guy who wins you the league. But £90 million, that is a heavy amount to pay for a player at age. If Bruno doesn't start applying a little bit of internal pressure on the Newcastle board, this standoff is going to drag out into the final seconds of deadline day. Personally, I think Arsenal need to stop playing around with 55 and 65 million pound low balls. If you want to be champions, you pay the champion tax. Go put 80 million plus add-ons on the table, and go get your man before another European giant gakes up and swoops in.
Right.
Moving on to player number 2, and this one is a fascinating tactical pivot. Rodgers. AFTV Transfer Daily confirmed that Arsenal are actively preparing a formal bid for the Aston Villa forward, but they also warn that negotiations are going to be incredibly complex. Why? Because Villa are fiercely reluctant to sell, and the player has been completely locked into international tournament focus. Let's talk about Rodgers away from the rumour mill. This kid is an absolute powerhouse. The way he picks up the ball in the half spaces, turns and drives at defenders with pure, unadulterated velocity is terrifying to watch. He has that rare combination of physical, imposing stature and incredibly subtle, delicate footwork. But I have to ask the hard question here. Is Aston Villa really the place you try to shop right now? Emery is building a powerhouse over there. They aren't a selling club anymore. They don't need the money. And they certainly don't want to hand a direct rival one of their most dynamic attacking assets. If Arsenal think they can just stroll up to Birmingham and pick up Rodgers for a reasonable fee, they are living in a dream world. This negotiation is going to be an absolute root canal. My opinion? I love Rodgers. I think he fits the athletic profile Arteta craves for his dynamic front line. But if Villa demands an astronomical go-away price tag, Arsenal cannot afford to get bogged down in a secondary saga. You have to know when to hold and you have to know when to walk away. Now, what happens if the Guimaraes deal completely falls through? Well, the media is already floating the alternatives, and the name that keeps screaming at us from the headlines is Botafogo's Danilo Santos. The reports show Arsenal have made serious inquiries. He's valued right around 30 to 34 million, and half of Europe is quietly monitoring his situation. Let's be completely real about Danilo Santos. A lot of casual fans only remember him from his stint at Nottingham Forest before he headed back to Brazil. He was part of that star-studded Brazil squad at the World Cup under Ancelotti, but he barely saw the pitch, getting something like 44 minutes off the bench. Because Brazil crashed out early to Norway, Botafogo's dreams of his price tag skyrocketing completely evaporated. Now they are stuck needing a major sale, which leaves the door wide open for an absolute bargain. Here is my hot take on Danilo. At £30 million, this is an incredibly smart, low-risk, high-reward piece of business. He doesn't have the immediate, polished Premier League dominance of a Guimaraes. He's raw, but his defensive instinct, his covering distance, and his ability to break up play are statistically elite. If you spend 90 million on Bruno, your budget is completely wiped out. But if you pivot to Danilo for 30 million, you suddenly have 60 million pounds left over to go buy a world-class winger. If I'm sitting in the Arsenal recruitment meeting, I am looking at Danilo Santos not as a downgrade, but as a strategic enabler for the rest of the squad. But let's shift away from the midfield engine room and talk about the wide areas, because AFTV dropped an absolute bombshell regarding RB Leipzig's winger, Nusa. The kid is an absolute spark plug. On his day, his dribbling style is pure art. He loves to isolate fullbacks, he has a devastating drop of the shoulder, and he injects the kind of unpredictable electric chaos that makes fans jump out of their seats. But £51 million? Wow, that makes me incredibly nervous. Nusa is a young talent who is still trying to find his consistency at the absolute highest level. He has brilliant flashes, but he can also completely disappear from games for weeks on end. And look at the clubs chasing him, Tottenham and Atletico. That tells you everything you need to know. He is a classic high-reward gamble. If Arteta can coach him, refine his final ball, and teach him how to track back in a rigid defensive structure, 51 million will look like peanuts in 3 years. But right now, Arsenal don't need projects on the wing. They need a certified killer who can instantly relieve the pressure on Saka. For 51 million, I want a player who is a finished product, not a coin flip. I'm telling you right now, let Tottenham have this transfer race. It's too risky for where Arsenal are at. Finally, we have to look at the absolute craziest story on the entire board. Lille's 18-year-old midfield prodigy, Ayyoub Bouaddi. He's been linked with a massive move to Arsenal, Manchester United, and Liverpool after putting on an absolute clinic for Morocco in the World Cup. But here is where the transfer market completely loses its mind.
Lille's president, Olivier Letang, came out and basically told the world, if you want this kid, you better break your club records. He literally pointed to Manchester City buying Elliot Anderson for 116 million, and Tottenham eyeing Sandro Tonelli for 100 million, as the baseline benchmarks for Bouaddi. They are demanding £100 million for an 18-year-old. Let's just take a deep breath and analyze how insane that is. Bouaddi is a sensational talent. The composure he shows at his age, his spatial awareness, and his technical baseline are completely mind-blowing. He plays like a veteran who has been in European football for a decade. But £100 million? The football market is completely broken, guys. We are now valuing potential exactly the same way we used to value world-class, prime years performance. Former players like Stefan Schwarz have explicitly come out and warned Arsenal. Do not fall for the hype. Prioritize Bruno Guimarães over Bouaddi all day long.